So another question I frequently get asked is, what the heck is up with the periscope? How do you use it? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So we're just going to go ahead and enter manual mode, and don't worry if you don't know, how to do this stuff just yet. Let's go ahead and enter manual proportional. There we go. So we've got ourselves, a pretty fancy periscope here. So how do we use it? There's a few ways to use the periscope. We could see if we go ahead and we plug in our, where is it? Altitude check, 89.9. So we can go ahead and plug in 89.9. We'll just bump that up to 90. And now we're going to go ahead and try and fit the Earth within these boxes here. We can go ahead and do, a little bit of pitch down, a little bit of roll right. We could see a pretty good fit with the Earth. This is a way of aligning fairly close to your 0, mark. It's not really perfect, unfortunately, but it is pretty close. From here, we can actually figure out our yaw angle. We could take a look at some of these clouds drifting. And we could see we haven't really yawed very much, just roll. So let's go ahead and induce some yaw here. And then let's go ahead and line up our roll and repitch down. So now we could see, take a look at that. Now these clouds are drifting. So we can use this drift here to calculate how much we've rolled by. So we'll tweak it until the clouds are pretty much pointing straight through the ground track lines. We could see we should be about yaw 170, and that which we are just a little bit less than 170, bearing in mind that this is reflected here, excuse me. So yeah, 170 here, bearing in mind we are pointing retrograde, so it is actually in Mercury retrograde orientation, just a little bit over 350. We can see we are just a little bit under. So again, pretty close. Rough approximations offered by the periscope. Pretty cool. Now, another thing we could do is let's go ahead and yaw back to 0. Is we can actually figure out for the purposes of the tutorial, using the debug backspace key, just to make things easier, we can actually figure out where our retrograde orientation is on this periscope as well. Here, if we align ourselves up, these 3 lines on the horizon, just like that, we've got ourselves, again, not exactly, but very close to the retrograde orientation. And another cool feature is this top curve. If we go ahead and give ourselves a pitch up, and we align the forward horizon with that top curve, that should give us our 0 degree mark near our entry attitude after we've done retrofire. So basically, to sum up, we can use the top hash to get our 000. We can use the bottom hash, set of hashes here, to get our retrograde orientation. And then to figure out our yaw angle, if for whatever reason we have a failure of our IMU, and we want to make sure that, yeah, we can line up here, of course, with roll being just that the Earth is in view of the periscope. pitch being that the hash marks are lined up with the horizon, you know, of course, we would not really have a way to determine yaw. So to determine yaw, we would request our altitude data. We will plug that in. We could see we're now up to 90.2, so that's still pretty close to 90. We will line the Earth up as best as possible here, and then we can measure the drift of the clouds or any landmarks to determine our yaw reference. So for example, let's yaw to the right by 30 degrees. We'll go ahead and reline up with roll. We'll go ahead and reline up with pitch as best we can to make it fit in the boxes. And now we could see we just measure the drift of the clouds here. And we could see we are actually yawed over 60, 50, 40, 30, about 35 degrees. And we could see pretty close. Here shows about 32. And we measured about 35. So this is how you operate the periscope. And then we can go ahead and let's go ahead and try and correct our drift. So we are 35 degrees off. So let's go ahead and without using the IMU, let's go ahead and try and fix that. So we'll yaw a little bit. We'll stabilize. Again, for the purposes of speeding this up, we'll use a debug backspace, but it is completely optional. We'll go ahead and we'll reset our drift. We'll recenter the Earth in the periscope. And then we'll go ahead and try and measure our drift. We can see some clouds floating by. So this time we're still about 20 degrees off. So let's go ahead and fix that. This is pointing to the left here, so we need to yaw left about 20 degrees. We'll yaw left a little bit. We'll stabilize. We'll reset the drift. We'll go ahead and we'll recenter the Earth. And we'll try and measure some drift again. We can see we're still drifting up just a little bit. This time about 15 degrees, so we'll yaw left. We'll fix our drift here. We'll stop. We'll go ahead and we will roll to a line. Pitch to a line. And now we'll go ahead and we'll give ourselves a new determination once we have seen some usable landmarks. That, of course, is one of the curtails of the optics piece. So we'll go ahead and we'll find some landmarks. There, we've got some coming up. That's good. Let's go ahead and recenter. And we can see here the islands are pretty much traveling exactly straight. We'll go ahead and remeasure though. They're just being a very slight, what looks to be about about 5 degrees yaw. So we'll go ahead and we will, again, yaw left a little bit. Try and stabilize. Roll to a line. And pitch to a line as desired. And we could see that that is a pretty good ground track right there at 0 yaw. Pretending we didn't see the pitch now, we would pitch down, line ourselves up, and there we have a perfect retro fire attitude. We can of course verify with a navigation reticle. Seeing that she's pointing right at the horizon with a very good alignment. And of course, going back to auto, seeing that the auto system has no need to adjust whatsoever. Taking us back, now that we've figured that out, let's go ahead and align with this mark here. And flipping this to re-entry, let's go ahead and turn the autopilot back on. And we can see in re-entry attitude with no reason for the autopilot to fire. So this is how you navigate via the periscope. I hope that helps.